I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Paris Union School District number 95 Board of Education for Monday, June the 2nd. Let the record show that all members are present except for members Bailey and Sanchez. The voting sequence for this meeting is as follows: Isaac, Tuttle, Calvert, Idle, and Davis. Audience to visitors, or anybody in the audience like to address the board this evening?
I just wanted to thank y'all for the opportunity for the Wall of Fame to be able to speak to us Mayo 8th graders on Thursday. It really meant a lot to me, and I said I believe orange and black, and also believe red and white. So
You said that, didn't I?
You did a very good job.
Thank you.
What color is Paris?
Orange and black.
Paris, no, the city.
The city?
Oh, I know. Orange and black as far as I'm concerned.
She just believes
She
whatever
believes
it is.
that
I believe I did.
In your information is the consent agenda, which contains the minutes from the May 5th regular meeting, the May 19th special meeting, a list of bills, and the April's treasurer's report. Does anyone have any questions on the consent agenda this evening? If not, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Isaac,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes. Secretary's report, Amy's going to fill in for B.
Yes, we received a note from 4-H. The Edgar County 4-H Association sincerely appreciates your donation of $50 paid in May 2014 in memory of Dale Hewitt. Continued support of 4-H will serve the present and future 4-H members for many years to come. With your generosity, we are able to help 4-Hers make the best better. Sincerely, Penny Peterson, 4-H Association Treasurer. And then we received 2 cards in reference to Mary Wright, one from Paris United Methodist Church, thanking 95 for our gift, and the other is from Melinda Dove, Amelia and Addison Mueller, and Devin Wright, to all Paris Union District 95. Thank you so much for your donation, honoring our mother. She devoted almost 40 years to teaching and always put children first, her students and her family. She touched so many lives and truly loved doing it. She is and will be greatly missed. Thank you for supporting her throughout her teaching years.
Good, thank you. Superintendent's agenda.
Okay, well, the first thing on the agenda tonight is we have a couple of plaque presentations to make for some retirees. Mr. Hassler is here this evening, and Mr. Hassler, of course, everyone knows, served on the board for 13 years, and I think they went very quickly. If you want to present, maybe come out here separately, and then you can get a picture together, or however you want to do
No, I can do
it.
it separately.
Okay. 13. That's your kids all the way through school.
Doug, congratulations. We appreciate the 13 years that you put in on the board.
I got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, we do want to thank you for everything you've done for the board and everything you've done for the students of Paris and your family and what you're doing now with the foundation, so.
Well, it's come a long way.
Oh,
You guys should
sure have.
get out of the way.
And then Martha Whitaker. Martha is retiring with us after 35 years of service to District 95, and as you remember, Jerry was gone, was it just last year?
You're way too young to retire.
Maybe get a little closer, maybe just a little.
But congratulations for your 35 years and everything that you've done for the students of District 95.
Thank you.
Goodbye, and I was happy the whole 35 years. I didn't change anything about it, so I enjoyed working with the kids.
We appreciate you and your whole family's service to the district, so that's really, really nice. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you guys are welcome to go. It's one of those times, Jerry's like, oh no, Jerry, you have to stay. Yeah. Thank you. Well, the next time on the agenda, we do have a retirement request. Marilyn Whittington, who teaches special education at Memorial School indicated her intent to retire at the end of the 16-17 school year. She's asking for the salary incentive as stated in the teacher's contract. At this time, I would ask the board to approve the retirement request for Marilyn Whittington effective at the end of the 16-17 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, Isaac,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes.
Okay. We have a resignation for the Scholastic Bowl sponsor. Allison Worth from Mayo Middle School is asking to resign as the Scholastic Bowl sponsor. I'd ask the board to accept this resignation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, Isaac,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes.
Okay, I have a recommendation from Mr. Larson and Nick Roberts to employ Nick Sanders as cross-country coach at Mayo Middle School for the 14-15 school year. As you recall earlier this year, the board approved adding cross-country. So I would recommend that the board approve Nick Sanders to serve as Mayo cross-country coach for the 14-15 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is that on a stipend basis or?
Yes, and they were moving one stipend over. They had one there. that they-
Assistance trackers and that?
Yeah, and they moved it over to him. So there'll be no additional cost.
Any other discussion? If not, Isaac,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes.
Okay, each year, we also bring to the board the support staff salary increase, and they always recommend the same as what is with the APT for support staff. I would ask that the board approve the salaries for all the support staff for the 14-15 school year.
So moved.
Second.
How much is?
2.75%.
Any discussion? If not, Isaac,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes.
Okay. Also have before you the administrative contracts. I have the contracts for Amy Carey, for Gary Dawn, and for Jeremy Larson. I'm asking just for their 1-year contract renewal and at the same 2.75 as we're given to the other staff. I'd ask the board to approve this recommendation.
So moved.
Any discussion? If not, Isaac,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes.
Okay, it's time to renew our IESA membership for Mayo Middle School. And Carolyn Wentz, I would ask the board to approve the renewal of this membership for the 14-15 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, Isaac,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes.
Okay, lunch prices due to the State's Healthy Kids Act. There are certain requirements in that act of 2010 that require the district to make certain changes in their menus and to also include some increases periodically in lunch prices. This year, it is mandated that we increase our lunch prices by 5 cents. That will increase ours from $2.10 to $2.15. So I'd ask the board to approve the increase for the lunch prices for 14-15 school year.
Are there any changes in the menu this time?
No, I mean, she's not proposing any changes. She follows all the State Healthy Kids Act requirements and for the vegetables and the fruits and the grains and, so no changes in that.
So moved.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It's mandated by the Healthy Kids Act, by
Yeah,
the state, and the state,
yeah.
okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, Isaac,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes.
Okay, we also have some donations to approve for the Mayo softball field. I bring them to you every month, makes out there recruiting, getting more donations, so each month I bring you the list. Tonight I'd ask the board to accept the following donations: Edgar County Foundation, $3,500, Premium Packaging, $500, Paris Beacon News, $500, and New Wave Communications, $500.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, Isaac,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes.
Okay, we also have a request from the city of Paris to approve a utility easement for the city to run a water main down the property line for the cooperative high school. Now, Crestwood will also be approving this easement, or this resolution for an easement at their meeting. They wanted it done as quickly as we could, so they will start that work anytime. So I would ask that the board approve the enclosed easement with the city of Paris, which between District 95 and the city, to run a water main on the new high school property.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this, the two districts, the 95 and 4, approve this, and the Paris Cooperative High School one does not have to?
No, because the high school actually belongs to District 90, the property itself is entitled to Paris District 95 and Unit 4. Any of the other contracts and all are mainly held through the cooperative, but it does not actually own the building or the property.
Okay.
So they won't have to approve this.
Okay. Icy,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes.
Okay, you have the handbooks from the Creative Center, Memorial, Wentz, and Mayo in your packet. I handed those out, in fact, Mayo's several weeks ago because Jeremy couldn't be here today. There's been just some minor changes to the handbook, and things have been updated, and staff updates, and those kinds of things. I know we have Gary and Amy here if you have any questions on theirs, but at this time I would ask that you approve the student and faculty handbooks for Creative Center, Memorial, Wentz, and Mayo schools.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, Icy,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes.
Okay, the TV station is here this evening, and they did call me the other day, and I really actually forgot that you said you might come over. They were interested in hearing a little more, which you'll be able to, I don't know how long you want to stay on Common Core, and how Common Core is affecting our district. And I told them we were going to have a presentation tonight, as well as we had our curriculum director here, she'd be the person. So I don't know really how.
We were just wanting to hear a little bit about Common Core and then also talk to you about the high school.
Okay, and so I'll just say a few words about the high school project itself, that the high school project's about a $40 million project.
You don't have to do it right now. We can
Well,
do it.
I'm gonna be leaving shortly, and if you wanna ask specific questions, that's fine, and board members can respond if you're wanting to get this on the news. I don't know if you visited the site.
We were gonna head there after.
Okay, up north of town, so you know where the site is, so it's gonna be a little wet today, but we're doing a long lens shot from there. It's coming along very nicely. I mean, we're progressing. We're due to be completed December of 14 or January, and we will not occupy the building until August of 15, so we'll have plenty of time between the completion date, even if there are some minor delays, to get into the building by August of the next school year, so we can get in there and do cleanup after the punch list is completed and get it furnished and all of that. So I don't know if you have other specific questions, and board members might be able to.
Oh, I hate to ask you to sit in front of everyone. We didn't know if, like, on the way out the door, we could just talk to you real quick on camera.
Oh, sure, you can, because I'm gonna have to leave early too, so the only thing, maybe you can talk with me, chat with me when they're just starting the Common Core presentation, if that works. Just a few things that I wanted to highlight. Our audit will begin here shortly in August. Kempers had called and confirmed that they would be here in August, so we're going to be starting on our audit. We're looking at, well, we're going to present at the next school board convention. There's been a proposal submitted. We'll be talking about curriculum by Mrs. Jones and Mr. Larson and the other administrators. So this year when we go to the convention, we will be one of the presenters. And we did receive a letter from them congratulating us on being selected. And we've done that one other time when the new cooperative was formed. So it's kind of exciting to be able to do that and talk a little bit about our community. I've included information from Mrs. Jones on the Professional Development Committee and the summary of what some of the things that they've discussed so far this year. And once again, you received a letter in there about Mr. Roberts being selected to the WVFCA Hall of Fame, and gives you some of the dates and things for that when he'll be inducted there. I really, other than the Common Core presentation, which We've got Christy Heil coming, she's assistant principal from Mattoon Elementary School. And they've been working with Common Core and implementing it, for the past 3 years.
Yes, and
At
maybe when it came out, but they have actually used the new math series this past.
But they've used the series that we're talking about and going to be introducing. So we felt it would be, board members have had questions, as parents have had questions, and that we just recently had a few workshops, invited parents in to talk about some of these changes in Common Core, especially with the math. So that's what she'll mainly be talking to you about this evening, because that's basically been the area where we've seen the most changes, because of just the way the math is being presented now. So Christy will be able to tell you a little more about that, and Carol is going to, I'll walk out and talk with them just for a second if you want, and then they may want to get a part of what you're talking about, what our district's dealing with Common Core, and they can get that on camera and go out to the site before it gets dark. So that concludes my agenda, other than the presentation. If you don't mind, I'm sorry that I moved over.
Sure.
So, thank you. Well, I wasn't sure about coming, they called me to the restaurant. I didn't know it was one little snippet.
What channel is it?
You never show much. He called and wanted to interview Common Core. I said, well, we're gonna do a presentation, but I.
What channel? Hey, Connie, what channel is it? 10.
Are you on TV next time? There you go.
I don't get channel 10.
Yeah, you got a dish over there.
We gave him the deal.
That might be a good one.
Yeah, I'm just full of.
Sometimes.
Hopefully, take pictures of the one side.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, kind of did mention the TV. Thanks a lot. All right.
Don't drop the ball.
As, yeah. Jeremy wanted me to pass these out. Of course, he's just very disappointed he can't be here tonight. You know how he is. He wants to add his hand in on everything. So, but anyway, he's going to be distributing these to the local businesses in the town. And he's quite proud of the accomplishments at Mayo. And so those are highlighted here on this flyer that he wanted to be sure you had a copy of. And so anyone would like to display those at their business in town, be sure to let him know. He'll get you a stand you can put it in, and so it can be.
It's actually gonna run in the paper on
Is it gonna-
Wednesday. We gave him a special prize, so he's gonna run it in the
Is he
paper.
gonna run? Okay.
That is a wonderful presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Mhm. Right. The second item you have there is, it's just a general article on Common Core called Making the Shifts, and it highlights the changes that have been made in the English language arts and in the math curriculum. So that's for your reading, and again, I think it's just a very good article, just summarizing the changes that are coming to the Common Core. So that's for you. And then I'm going to just start tonight by an overview of the Common Core and what we've done specifically in our district to prepare for this. And then, as Connie had mentioned, Christy Hill, the assistant principal from Mattoon, is going to talk about their implementation process for the new math series. And Lindsay Gosnell is here tonight too to talk about her experiences from her teacher point of view as well as her students with the new math series as well. So I don't want to take up too much of your time because I want you to be able to hear from the other two guests tonight. But as I think I mentioned, we had a parent meeting a couple of weeks ago. Real pleased as far as the questions that we were asked by the parents. We wish more would have attended, but still we thought we had good discussions going with the parents. And one thing that I thought was interesting, I was sitting by one of our parents who's from Japan, we're here through MEL, and she says, what's this with this common standard? She says, in Japan, we've always had common standards. So she was just surprised that we were now developing common standards across our country. I thought that was sort of interesting to share. But anyway, we have already made ELA changes, and that term's going to be used quite a bit now in Common Core. It stands for English Language Arts. So instead of saying it all out, we're good in education as far as using acronyms, so we say ELA. And these changes have been put in place last year. And I think with the English Language Arts, we don't receive too much feedback from parents because the changes just aren't quite as noticeable as you're going to see in the math curriculum. So some of the things we have done is we now have a 50-50 ratio of informational text versus literary text. So that means that two terms that we used to use was nonfiction, fiction. Now the terms in the Common Core are informational text versus literary text. So in all our K-8 classrooms, we have an equal balance, which is important to do, because when you think about it, a lot of the information we read out in the real world is not just stories, but it's informational text on how to do certain things. We have that in place. We've added extended text. By that we mean novels or biographies or plays, those longer pieces of text that you don't find in a literature book or a reading series. And those are now in place. Our students are receiving one of those, one per quarter. And again, if we added 2 novels, we would add in 2 pieces of informational text, like a biography or a play or possibly a series of poems, whatever, but to get that balance, to keep it 50-50. Our teachers have been trained in adding text-dependent questions. We always want the students now to go back to the text because, as you see when you read that article, our instruction should be based in text evidence. So they should be trained in that area, as well as providing complex text. And what that means is not just only expecting students to read at grade level, but to provide them with a few challenging texts with support from the teacher that we expose these students to, so they interact with harder pieces of the written language. And you might say, well, why would that be? Well, one of the reasons that you want to include that now is they found one of the greatest, to have students go to college. One of the things they determined through research, of course research can, they have research for everything today, but the more likely the students interact with complex texts, the more likely they're going to be successful in college. So therefore, we've added that piece to our reading curriculum as well. And again, a lot of this is highlighted in that article, so I hope you take the time to read that. As far as our writing goes, again, writing has become, so we know it's important anyway, but it's becoming more so with the Common Core. Not only are students expected to write the narrative, we want our students now to be able to write explanatory articles, as well as research articles, as well as opinion pieces. So all these different types of writing we are now teaching in our classroom. Christy.
Hi.
And so these are the changes that we've already initiated in our English Language Arts program, and I think they're going pretty well. Now, we're certainly not done. We've got more work to do, and we need to refine the process and continue on with the other areas of English Language Arts as well. Moving on to the math, what we have done so far in our math curriculum, we formed a district-wide math committee this year to better align our curriculum to the Common Core. And this committee was made up of a representative from each of the grade levels, teachers from each of the grade levels, as well as the principals. And as we were looking at our curriculum, we identified areas that our current math series, Saxon, was not aligning well to the Common Core. For example, Saxon would cover many topics, but not go deeply into them. And now one of the major shifts is to cover fewer topics, but cover them in depth so you get that conceptual understanding. Another thing we noticed is that the skills just really didn't line up well now to the Common Core. An example I can give you is that in 5th grade, for example, students are now expected to take a mixed number times a mixed number, 1 2/3 times 3 1/2. Well, that skill in our current math series, Saxon, is not taught till the 6th grade year. So we would have our students being tested on that in 5th grade when it comes to the state test and part, and therefore if we kept on with Saxon, they wouldn't have had any practice or the experience or been exposed to that skill. So with that in mind, we said, okay, we need to look into making some changes here. So the committee looked at different math series. In fact, we had 3 of them. They limited it down to 2, which were My Math and Go Math. And after the representatives from each of those companies had come to present, the teachers really decided, we really think we want to pursue the My Math. We think that's the one that offers the best alignment to the Common Core and has the best resources, not to mention was a little bit less expensive than the other one too, so that was a plus. Well, we said, okay, that's fine, so let's go see it in action. So we were fortunate enough to have Christie's School, Williams Elementary in Mattoon, say, yes, come on over, we got to observe teachers there, we got to see the lessons in action, and after our visit there, as well as the middle school teachers went to Tolono, so they observed as well. We said, yes, we still think that's a series we would like to purchase. Then even we had some teachers pilot it. Say, we'd like to actually teach it ourselves just to make sure this is the direction we'd like to go. So that's where Lindsay will come in a little bit later, talking about her experiences by piloting the My Math this 4th quarter. So with that being said, the committee then made the recommendation to say, yes, we would like to change math series and recommend My Math for the next school year. So that's where we are at the present time with aligning our math curriculum then to the Common Core. And we knew math presented maybe more concerns than the English language arts. There's been a lot of exposure in the media about the way things are taught. And so that's why I thought it would be good for you to hear from Christy Hill, since she has the implementation experience with My Math for a year, as well as she's just a wealth of knowledge on the Common Core. She is, as I mentioned in your handout, on our park committee for the state of Illinois. So she is actually involved in the process of making up these test questions as well as reviewing them. She has presented for our ROE Region 11 and just, as I said, is a wealth of knowledge. So unless you have any specific questions for me, I think I need to stop at this point and turn it over to Christy and let her tell you about My Math and Common Core.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me today. I'm thrilled to be able to come and share some information with you, and I'm hopeful that I can answer any questions that you have, either about the new standards and assessments or My Math. I have a presentation here. I was hoping I could pull it up on the computer. You guys don't mind just waiting a minute? Is that okay?
Sure.
If not, I can do it the old-fashioned way, whatever you
No, we can,
prefer.
yeah.
Let me just see if it's an easy thing, then we'll try it, and if not, then I'll just talk. So it's asking me to log on, though.
Do we need
It's okay.
We can get you logged on.
I didn't realize how long Paris is.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't think about it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do you have any extras? I do, yeah, I have plenty.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Would you like some? There's gonna be old news for you guys, but I'll get you one anyway. You're welcome. As Carol said, I work in Mattoon. For one more day, I'll be assistant principal at Williams Elementary. And then in the fall, I'll be principal at Riddle Elementary. So if you're familiar with Mattoon, we have 2 large elementary schools. After we had neighborhood schools, we built some large elementary schools. And as Carol alluded to, we just finished the process of adopting a new math series. And the math series that our teachers adopted and selected was My Math. So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about why did we change in the first place, and how did we go about that selection process, and then I want to tell you a little bit about our first year of implementation. So we're just going to go old school, right? You don't mind, right, if I don't have the...
It's right here.
Oh, is it? Okay. you know, I just did some bad instructional modeling there. I gave you all the answers, so you're gonna be able to see everything before I even talk. You won't have any reason to want to listen to me. Let's see here. Okay. So we started as a committee with the question, why change? I worked previously in Shelbyville. We used Saxon Math in Shelbyville, which I understand you guys are moving, or you're using currently. And then when I moved to Mattoon, we were using Everyday Math, which we talk about polar ends of the spectrum. Saxon is very rote. I'm sure you all are familiar with it. If any of you are parents as well as board members, you are familiar with the way that system operates. And then Everyday Math is much more spiral curriculum, very, as I will say, interesting ways of teaching some, you know, core skills like multiplication and division. So two completely different ends of the spectrum. And we came to the table and we said, you know, we're happy with what we have, why would we change? Well, there were a few reasons we needed to change. First of all, the way that I learned math is not going to be adequate anymore for the students that we're educating today. In fact, as part of my role on the state's committee for the new standards and PARC, we talk a lot about how the students we're teaching right now, we're preparing for jobs that we don't even know what they will be yet. They don't even exist. So with those changes and what they're going to be able to do, we have to change the way that we teach them. And along those lines, we had some new standards. In 2010, you all know because you're on board, the state changed the learning standards from what we knew as the Illinois Learning Standards that were adopted in '97 to the new Illinois Learning Standards incorporating the Common Core. And so it'll be 4 years ago this June. And we've had that time then to kind of get to know what the standards said. And I heard as I came in, you talk about the work that your district has done. So that was another reason. We knew we had to change because what we've been using previously was aligned to a set of expectations our students were no longer expected to master. So for the last 4 years, districts like yours have been trying to figure out what are these standards really saying, how can we teach that effectively, and we felt like the programs we've been using weren't really clearly aligned to those standards. So then they turned up the heat just a little bit because next year the new accountability assessments come into play. So you all are familiar with the ISAT and the PSAE. Next year will be the first year, as you know, for the PARC assessment, which is basically the assessment that will measure how well our students are performing on these new standards. For us, it was kind of a wake-up call because we thought, well, we've got a year to get ready for our students to take these new tests. And we knew the programs that we were using weren't as closely aligned as they needed to be for our students to be successful. So this was kind of a little bit more of, I guess, motivation for us to look for something. So let's talk through those changes. The first one is about the changing world. So we asked ourselves, what skills will students need for the future? And this is kind of the stuff that was being asked whenever the new standards were developed. One of the first things is to think critically. And at our board meeting last month, we have a gentleman on our board who owns a substantially sized construction company in Mattoon. And he talked a lot about this. He said, you know, I need my guys that are out there on the job site to be able to figure stuff out. I don't need to know that they know the formula, the Pythagorean theorem. I just need them to know how long they need to cut this board so that they can get it right and install. And so talking about being able to think critically about a problem and then apply those skills in unknown situations. So I think back to my experience when I was learning math, and I took all the way to calculus in high school. So I think of myself as pretty good at math. But if you ask me questions about how to apply some of the y-slope-intercept, to be perfectly honest, I memorized the formula. I don't really know exactly what that means. And so the shift in expectations is for students to be able to not just memorize a formula and get an answer, but be able to explain how to do it and why you would need to use that. So we're hoping that students in the future will be able to apply these skills in situations we don't even know yet. And then to persevere in solving problems. you know, I don't know about you, how often you get into classrooms or you have school-aged children, but something that we often see is if it's not immediately easy, we have a tendency to want to give up. And, you know, I say kids, but, you know, whenever I start reading tax code or something, if it's not immediately easy, I kind of want to give up too. So we want to develop perseverance. These expectations actually came from Fortune 500 companies. So when you talk about who wrote these standards and why did these standards even come to be, educators were involved, but CEOs of very successful companies were also involved and said, this is what we're looking for in a 21st century employee. College admissions boards were involved. This is what we're looking for as a freshman incoming student. This is what we want them to be able to do. So the last one on here goes more with the ELA, and I heard Carol talking about that when I came in. Being able to listen to what other people have to say, consider their opinions and their viewpoints, and then come together to create a really good, effective solution. And all of these things have to do with math. Not math the way I learned it necessarily, but definitely math for the future. The new learning standards we talked about being adopted in 2010, and they have two big sets of expectations for mathematicians and students learning math starting as early as kindergarten. The big one is skills. You have to know how to do math. That's the stuff that I think of my preparation in math mostly. I can do math problems. That's math skills. I have the skills to complete problems. The second piece is something a little bit new in these new standards that we have not seen before. And those are practices that go along with being able to do math. What practices do successful mathematicians use? And one of those is perseverance. So knowing when you're going down the wrong path and instead of just giving up, coming back and trying something different. The three biggest things, and I think you were touching on this, the three biggest things that are the shifting expectations. One is a solid understanding of what math means. So the best way I can explain this is when kids are in kindergarten, instead of immediately going to memorizing 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 4, instead of immediately memorizing that, understanding the concepts of addition. So if you have 2 and I give you 1 more thing or 2 more things, it's the actual, what's being represented in math problems. So understanding that first. I put the example of invert and multiply on here. When I learned to divide fractions, I learned invert and multiply, don't ask why, you just do that. So that's different than understanding when you divide fractions, you're actually making something smaller. When you think multiply, you think get bigger, right? So there's a nuanced but important difference there. Procedural fluency. I can tell you this is one of the strengths of Saxon math is that kids know their facts. They can memorize and it's rote memorization. And so that's a strength of that. That's only one piece of the whole puzzle for the new standards and new expectations. Increased rigor is another important concept. What we've been teaching in, I would say, Algebra 1 at the freshman level is now integrated into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math. So it changes the level of expectation and pushes some of that stuff all the way back down to kindergarten. So where we were coming from, mathematical concepts were strong, fluency was weak. From your perspective and what Shelbyville was doing, the fluency was strong, but the mathematical understanding and conceptual application was a little bit more weak. So when we talk about my math, we found it was the best marriage of those two things, and the increased rigor came because the series is aligned to what the grade level standards are. So we decided to implement those new standards in these ways. You guys, I know, are going about it your way as well, considering what you are currently doing. What are we doing instructionally? And then what materials have we been using? And what does research say about those materials? Are they effective in student learning and growth? And then which are most closely aligned to the new expectations? I wanted to talk with you just a little bit tonight about what the new assessment looks like, and maybe some of it you know, but it's going to be important when we talk about why we chose my math, because the PARCC test, it stands for the Partnership of Assessment for Readiness for College and Careers, and it was created in a way that's called evidence-centered design. This is important because it helps us all understand where do these questions come from anyway, or why are they written the way that they are. So if you start with me on the far left of this infographic where it says claims, basically what we do to start writing a question or create a test is we talk about what claims can we make about students who are mastering these standards. So if a student can do this, or if a student has mastered this specific standard, we can make this claim about him or her. From there, we decide what evidence do we need to elicit to see if we can say the claim is true or the claim is false. Once we know what evidence we're looking for, then we design the task. So we're not just writing the problems, we're starting with the standards. From the standards, we make claims. Then we say what evidence needs to be collected to see if that claim is true or false about this student. And then from there, what kind of task could get that evidence for us. So because of this, it's even more crucial that our, I'm going to go a little bit further, just real quick to show you this. It's more crucial that our math program and instruction matches the standards. Start over with the left. So your math program must match the claims. The claims are taken from the standards. Therefore, the math program has to match the content and practice standards to prepare students for this success. So in other words, if we're teaching mathematics the way we've always taught it, or using materials we have always taught, we're not matching what we're doing instructionally or what materials we're giving kids. We're not matching that with what they're going to be expected to know and be able to do when they leave us as 12th graders. So this really becomes a K-12 curricular issue, something that has to be figured out all the way down. The slides that I just zipped through, I'll go back and just show you quickly. This is a big slide that you guys can look at your leisure, little beach reading, since we're heading into summer. I just wanted to show you quickly, there are 5 claims or subclaims that students will be measured on this assessment. And subclaim A talks about content of connections to practice, the major content of the grade. Every grade level has a few things that are essential for them to learn so that the next grade level can build on that. I'll use addition and subtraction as an easy example. You have to know how to add before you can subtract. And you have to know how to add repeatedly before you can multiply. If 3rd grade students don't know how to add, then in 4th grade we can't teach them multiply. That's just a very simple explanation of that. Subclaim A are the types of questions that measure what's the most important thing at that grade level. It'll be about 70% of the test at every grade level. What's the major focus of the grade? Our previous math program was not aligned to the major focus of the grade. So we knew right away we were setting kids up because we had to have a program that when I entered 3rd grade, 70% or more of my time was going to be spent on that core content for that grade level. Because that's what they're going to be expected to know for 4th grade, and also that's what they're going to be tested on the new assessment. So subclaim A is a biggie. Subclaim B, there is additional and supporting content for every grade. We talk about that like things we're going to introduce in 3rd grade, but they don't have to master. It's just maybe something that we need to lay the foundation for so that in 4th grade they have a little bit of an understanding so they can build upon that in the following year. Subclaims C, D, and E C and D are more the modeling and application. So those are the things like, instead of just rote facts, this is where I will put some type of a concept into a situation. So it's application of things. And if we have time tonight, I was going to show you a couple examples, but we might not have time for that. And then subclaim E, this speaks to one of the things I loved most about Saxon was I knew my kids knew their facts. I knew that and I appreciated that because they need to know that so they can do more advanced math and we're not using our fingers or our number charts or whatever tools we need. So through grade 6, there will be a component of the assessment that measures fluency. So it'll be timed and it'll be a certain number of, let's say, addition, subtraction problems mixed in. And they'll have a certain amount of time to answer as many as they can. So why is that important? Well, it's important because it stresses that any math program you adopt that is aligned with the Common Core is still going to honor and have components in there for fluency. That's not going to go away because it's something that is crucial in the standards, especially through grade 6. It's also important because that allows us to focus less, once kids get past grade 6, focus less on, well, I can't teach you how to find the area of this building because you don't know how to multiply. So you don't know how to multiply, you don't know how to add. And so, you've got sophomore year geometry teachers stressing because they're like, I can't get these kids to figure out area, and we don't know how to add. This addresses that concern, and it makes it an expectation for all students as of grade 6 to have that fluency in math problems. So that will be measured all the way through grade 6 on the park. Okay? We'll skip the task types. I think that if you guys had questions about that, you could look through it. I'm sure Carol will be able to answer. We've talked about that several times. But I do want to get to this last part of the presentation that talks about preparation. So preparation, not just for the park assessment, but how do we best prepare our students to be college and career ready when they leave us, so that we know confidently we have exposed them to the standards and given them materials that will prepare them for what the expectation is when they leave, and so they can compete with students across the area, across other states, and internationally. So the first big question to ask, and I know you guys are working hard at this because I know the work that you guys are doing in your curriculum department, and the teachers that came to visit us did an amazing job asking great questions. My staff was very impressed, and I have to say they were also very jealous because we didn't have the opportunity to go visit schools that were doing it, so they thought that was really cool. So first we have to understand the standards and claims. And then after that, we have to ask, do our instructional practices match these two things? Do they match the content of the standards, and do they match the format of the assessments? After that, we ask, do the classroom materials match? I can tell you from my work, just having conversations with Carol and also conversations with your teachers who came to visit, I believe there is a solid understanding of the standards and claims there. I believe that they understand the shifts that have to happen instructionally. And I think that if they're coming to you with a recommendation, their recommendation is going to be based on their understanding of those two things. And that is why we chose my math. So we had a teacher committee similar to what you guys have. That teacher committee came together and we reviewed several products. They spent a year reviewing products. The biggest thing for us was just because it was stamped Common Core Language, we didn't really believe it. So we did our own kind of gap analysis and we looked at what do the standards say, what's actually happening. And in this program, not only did we find a close match, we also found some differentiation stuff. So it said, if your students aren't quite ready for this, try this. If they're way beyond this, try this. We found a lot of times we do a great job with interventions for students who aren't quite ready, but sometimes we don't push hard enough the kids who are already there or a little ahead. And so this program provided us with the resources to be able to do that in the regular classroom. We also used a rubric-based selection process, and I feel like they were extremely thorough. It's a very large rubric. But most importantly, we were asking, does it match the content of the standards? Does it match the upcoming assessment? And does it honor the varying levels of mathematical readiness we have in our classrooms? We also reviewed research. We looked a lot at the What Works Clearinghouse and read a lot of studies about different mathematics programs and what was most effective and what wasn't. And then we recommended my math at the culmination of about a year's worth of work. As I told you, we did implement, and here's how we did that. We had a trainer from the company come and work with us for about 2 days, maybe a day and a half, 2 days. And she worked specifically with that committee of teachers that I mentioned that selected the program, and then they became our train the trainers model. So then they went out and they trained their grade level teams. Once a month we met, and we talked about, is this working as we had hoped? Do we need to make any adjustments? Do you need extra resources that we didn't know about? This has been by far the easiest implementation that I've been a part of as an administrator. Prior to this, we adopted a new language arts program, and that required exhaustive teacher work modification. This program, we have literally opened the books, opened the web page, everything is technology ready, and they have had to make very minimal adjustments. And we have not purchased any additional materials since our first adoption. Now, we had to order new textbooks for next year, they're consumables because they are workbooks. But in terms of teacher work hours, it's all just been in learning, it hasn't been in creating, which was our experience with our language arts curriculum. So 1 year later, let me tell you a little bit about feedback we're getting. I want to start with our teachers. We just had our grade level, our end of year grade level meetings, and a large chunk of our time was spent discussing the year with my math, because this is the first full year of them using it. I cannot tell you how thrilled our teachers are with using this program. It's extremely user-friendly, and that's been a big part of it. But I would say right up there with that, they feel as though their lower students are mastering concepts much more quickly. It has a very structured format, which your teachers would be familiar with coming from Saxon. But it pairs that structured format with much more higher level application, higher level thinking skills than what they had from just Saxon, at least in Shelbyville. Now, when we were in Mattoon, we came from my math, and it was basically taking those two ends of the spectrum and looking at the standards and taking the best of both of those programs. So not only have they felt like it's been more effective with our lower mathematicians, but that enrichment component that comes along with the program and the technology available has also been great for our more higher achieving math students. So that's one thing the teachers have said. Additionally, the assessments are all online. There are paper pencil versions, but they have the option, if they choose, to allow students to take the tests online. We've let that be a pilot this year. We've just said, if you want to try it, try it. If you want to stick with paper and pencil, go ahead and do that. We do have an ultimate goal of having our math assessments technology-based in 2 years. But we're taking the time to kind of, I guess, get comfortable with that because it's an adjustment for us. But they were excited about that because, first of all, it does a lot of the grading. Secondly, it gets kids on the computer and used to doing math problems on a computer like they will at the park. What about parents? Let's talk parents. We had at the beginning of the year, I'm assuming similar to things you guys do here, kind of a curriculum night where they came in and we said, here's the scoop, here's the new program. We can post the day's smartboard lessons, which are like a PowerPoint. You can just post it right on the website. If they want to review that, they can. We really haven't had any questions. Parents know how to do the homework because it's explicitly laid out and it's not a lot of different ways of doing things. There are problem-solving experiences, and kids are encouraged to solve it the way that they so choose. But it hasn't been overwhelming to the point where parents don't know how to do it, and that's been great for us, especially coming from everyday math. Kids, let me tell you what the kids like the best. They love everything on the smartboard. When a teacher opens their lesson, all the manipulatives for the day are built in. So I think back to my math experience, we had tanagrams, those little puzzle pieces we had to make in the shapes, and we had dice that we would get out, or counters. We have all that now, but it's all technology. We still sometimes use the manipulative ones, but the kids love it on the computer. The kids also love the workbooks are full color, and they're just beautiful products, which seems like a little thing, but it's so much more engaging for the kids. And when you ask them, that's one of the first things that they say. I actually just met with a group of students. We have our citizenship winners tomorrow as our 5th grade leaders. And since I knew I was coming here, I said, tell me a little bit about what you think about my math. And overwhelmingly, these 5th grade leaders said, it's so much easier than what we did before, which is exciting to me because I knew the curriculum before. And the math they're doing now is harder than the math that they were doing under the Illinois Learning Standards. So something for us is working. I attribute some of it to the program. I attribute a lot of it to our amazing teachers and their willingness to try new things. But really, truly, we've had a great year. Normally, in an adoption year, I would be here saying, we have a long ways to go, and we don't. It was an easy adoption for us. So I'm just here to answer any questions. I know some of you were there with us, but any questions you might have at this point regarding either the program or the new assessment or standards, or maybe you're just ready for me to stop talking, which is fine too. So, do you have any questions for me?
What is a smartboard?
That's a great question. I'm sorry to assume. A smartboard is basically this screen, but it's interactive. So think of like a gigantic iPad. it's like the new version of a chalkboard or a whiteboard. And anything that you can see on your computer, you can see on the smart board, and it's all touchscreen. So it's very interactive.
So does every one of your students have a computer?
No. In our classroom, we have one smart board. It's just on the chalkboard. And then we have 4 student computers. So basically like a center. We need to probably increase our technology, but financially we just aren't able to do that right now. So it'd be cool if they did. Yeah. They probably have technology they can bring with them and be able to do it that way. Other questions from anyone? Well, thank you, and I invite any of you, if you ever have questions or you want to come see it in action, you can come see us. You'll have to wait a couple months, because I'm going on vacation in about 3 days. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, see ya.
Carol, I just wonder if Mrs. Neiman knows that all of our classrooms
Yes, I
have
was gonna
smart
mention that.
boards.
Yeah, I have no idea. That's when we started talking about smart boards. I didn't-
Thank you for getting that to see one in action.
I will.
Nancy, when you go to the high school board meetings, that's a smart board that they present on there.
You were Dave was pressing.
It looks like a
I
whiteboard.
don't remember him pressing on the, I know that they press on the, like the tablet that's in front of them.
Computer.
I mean, whatever it is.
Yeah, he used the computer.
I'll just go look. You guys are closed now, right? Or not? Tomorrow?
If you said come in, yeah, sure.
But every single one of the rooms has a smart board and stuff.
Okay, I think Lindsay now would just like to present a little bit on her experiences with the MyMath.
I have a survey I asked my 4th grade class and all of the other 4th grade classes, just a few questions to get the point of view of the students. And overwhelmingly, they are happy with my math.
And Lindsay, how long did you present MyMath to your students?
We did all 4th quarter.
Okay.
So we ended up doing about 4 chapters, and I know Christy was talking about the workbook. Here's our My Math workbook. You can see it's in full color, and they have a section that we go through together, and then the homework is in here too. Compared to, there's 2 of these, compared to our Saxon textbook, which is just the typical one that we're used to seeing. But you're welcome to look at that. But back to the survey, I asked them if they liked my math, and you can see the agree and the strongly agree 30 and 22 compared to the I like Saxon. I want to continue using my math next year, 18 and 35. And I thought it was interesting to see how many of them did not want to go back to Saxon, the last question down there. On the next page, which math series do you think has lessons that are easier to follow? And like I said, my math that's in their workbook, which we didn't have workbooks, we just did copies of, so it wasn't in color, so they may like it even more next year. But they enjoyed being able to take that home with them, and the workbook will make that easier. And they just seem to like to get that out more than they did their textbook. The next question, which series helps you understand math better? They felt overwhelmingly that my math helped them with that and helped them think more deeply. The next question, that's more of the when and the why, which is what Common Core is all about, is when do you do this and why do you do it? And they definitely felt like my math helped in that section. And then the last one, to prepare for 5th grade, again, they chose my math. And this is all of the 4th grade together. I was on the committee, the other 3rd grade, or the other 3 chose to pilot as well. And this is all of them put together, how they felt, all the students. And the teachers, there was definitely some hesitation, but once we got into it, it really does help the students to add tools to their tool belt and figure out if they can't solve a problem, don't just stop, what else can we do? Or the why, there's a lot of why on the, even in Saxon, there was why, but no one really knew what to say. When it said explain, they didn't know. So now with My Math, they have a lot more options to, like we were doing multiplication, and they can explain using an area model, an array model, base 10 blocks. I mean, there's 4 or 5 different ways, whereas that wasn't an option before in Saxon. Now, if any of you have seen some of the homework, or if you've seen things online, it does look different, and there's often questions about, well, why are they making them solve division using repeated subtraction? That sounds ridiculous. But it's more of a, this is how it works, and this is why it works. Now you understand it, you can do it the way that we learned. But they need them to understand why it works. And that is something Saxon just simply doesn't have. So, from the teacher perspective, to be able to produce children that are going to perform well on the PARCC test and using Common Core state standards, we felt like we had to go with My Math.
The survey that you presented to the kids, and you probably already said this, but how did you base the questions on having taught them, or them having learned Saxon math the year before and My Math in their 4th grade year?
Well, we did
Or you did?
We did Saxon 3 quarters of 4th grade, and then the final quarter we did in My Math.
Okay, and I'm sorry if you already said
No,
that.
that's okay. So and of course, the big thing for 4th graders and on up is Saxon has a lot more homework than My Math does, so that makes a big difference. And then I did ask them to type in how they felt about it, and that was a big one. But a lot of them said it made it easier, and math was easier to understand, which, as we just saw in the presentation, it is harder math, but they feel like it's easier, so.
Is there a way to compare what they would have known if they would have still been in Sax and what they learned from My Math in the 4th? I'm just I mean, I realize you only did it one quarter.
Yeah.
Do you think that, were they doing things that they would not have been doing at Sax? I may not be asking this question correctly, but,
I mean, My Math absolutely has chapters that we would never get to using Saxon. And as a teacher, that is one of our biggest issues, especially at the WINS 345 building. It's, why am I spending half of my semester reviewing addition and subtraction? We're in 4th grade, and that is something Saxon spends a lot. I mean, we're in December before we hit multiplication, and the kids are constantly, when are we going to do multiplication? We learned it in 3rd grade, sometimes 2nd grade touches on it. So why are we still here? And with Saxon, they need to understand the facts, and that's what we saw in the presentation. That's the big thing, fluency. And with My Math, they're saying, yes, you need to understand fluency, but we have to keep going. There's so much more to learn. And so that's why there is a big difference if you look in the front, the table of contents, when you compare one series to the other.
so, I guess maybe this, either you or Carol can ask, that's a consumable, so that would be something that would be purchased every year?
Correct.
But the Saxon in K-3 was consumable in
Okay.
Purchased by the students or purchased by the school?
school district.
So we get to take that home, keep it.
See, they're redoing it, but yeah, and essentially that it will be their book to take home.
So they will clear the homework out, but the lesson itself will still be in there. So as a parent, you can see the lesson like it would be in the Saxon book, but you can see what the kids wrote. So, Saxon had 1 or 2 examples. This is going to have, 2 pages of independent work that they did, that we do as a class, that they can go back to and look at, which is difficult with the math book, because they couldn't write in the Saxon book.
How much more homework do you anticipate with this system as opposed to the Saxon in terms of math only?
Homework-wise, Saxon had far more homework. There are 30 questions starting in 4th grade compared to My Math. Saxon did a lot more spiraling. So if you look here, this would have been homework here, through here, 30 questions. Whereas in that one, you can see, well, right there's their homework, this page, and this page, and that's it.
You know, basically, your last question is an explanation of everything you've done.
Yeah,
And
the last
As I
question.
understand this
Mhm.
concept, I don't know that,
Yeah,
but that, you know, that can take a little time to, I mean, kids, number one, the language in math is a unique language, it's like French, it's like English, it's different, with
Yes.
different forms. Did you see any difficulty in the translation from the language of Saxon to the language of my math in terms of their initial?
there's definitely, they definitely use different vocabulary, which they are using the vocabulary that Common Core has introduced and is asking us to teach them. Something that, one of the things we looked at when we were comparing My Math and Go Math, My Math has a section on vocabulary for math. So, and they test them on vocabulary. And, so there's a vocabulary
You have
check.
the translation from Saxon to my math, so the kids will know basically what you're talking about?
Well, they have vocabulary cards and it does a lot of explaining. Saxon didn't really
But
have vocabulary.
Saxon had language.
Yes.
Now all of a sudden, we're transferring that language to my math. Is there a vocabulary, is there a translation guide that takes them from Saxon to my math with the same terms?
I think that's gonna be your teacher. I mean, the teacher's gonna have to be that translator. And the first year is going to be a transition to be able to get from this to this.
So
And-
if you transfer from the kindergarten to the first grade, you have a relatively small amount of translation to
Exactly.
take. But if you transfer from in the fifth grade, you've got basically 5 years of math language that all of a sudden has to be translated into another language.
Yes.
And is there something that facilitates this as you get higher up in the grade levels? I mean, I assume we're going through high school when you start teaching this. I mean, I may not be asking a question.
And I understand what you're saying, Steve, that, yeah, the terms are different, and that's because in the standards, they're different. And so since we've changed sort of ball games, you know, from the 97 Illinois state standards to the Common Core state standards, yeah, the language is different. And,
Right.
and the vocabulary math has even become more
It
so.
seems to me like that would be a major obstacle in the transition. I
Yes,
hate to take
you're right.
5 years of French and somebody gives me a test in German.
And I think what we need to do is, the teachers are aware of that, and, you know, they're, make those transitions in the classroom, but we need to make parents aware of that, give them skills to help out at home too. So we are planning on doing parent meetings and parent training. I think that would be important.
Something that each, sorry,
Okay.
that, I'm gonna use that page you had, they could go to online. Every student will have their own username and password on this program. So each lesson they can pull up and there's a video to watch, or there's tools, or there is the tutor, which is an actual teacher going on and giving different examples from that specific lesson that was taught that day. So they can pull up the whole workbook and they can pull up, like the manipulatives online that we were talking about earlier and all the other
And they
tools.
could do this at home.
They can do that at home,
So you piloted it, and then are you going with it next year then?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Can anyone do that, or do you have to have passwords to get in?
Well, there's teacher codes and they're set up in classrooms, so they have online access
Okay.
to it.
And I will say, as we looked at these, that was the one piece of this that kind of jumped out. And when we met with the rep, I was able to get to part of this meeting and most of the Go Math meeting with the rep. And I got to this one late, and I wasn't able to stay long. But in the 20 minutes I was at this one, I saw more of, if I had been a teacher looking at this program, thinking, okay, I've got an online component, I've got assessment online, I've got all of these online pieces, plus, if I'm gone, there's a sub packet online that all I have to do is just let the sub know where it is in the computer, and they click the button and it can teach the lesson. So I'm not trying to be clunky around with a bunch of sub notes that then may or may not get presented the right way. And then I've got this online component that if I go home and my parents don't know what it is I'm doing in my classroom, I can find it online, and then I can watch it at home too. So there were all of these different pieces that were there.
Are you telling me the subs are gonna be trained in this system too?
Well, they need to be aware of the components,
I mean, if
online.
they're coming in and they're substituting for a teacher and they've got to go through this, seems to me like they should have some kind of training in that area, or we've lost that lesson.
And right now, what we do is, if our classroom teacher is gone, they'll leave in their notes, okay, this file's on the computer, you need to open up this file. So we can do the same thing with the MyMath, and they've got this online tutor presenting the lesson in the terminology that they're going to find in the textbook. So it's not necessarily a lost lesson because they're going to hear it presented in not the way that their teacher would do it, but then when the teacher's back the next day, they can continue the lesson, ask the questions that they didn't get to ask the sub. Because that sub isn't necessarily going to be a specialist in.
Yeah, that's my point.
In any of it.
But again, they may not be as expert in Saxon either.
Right.
Right.
I'm just saying, it looks to me like teacher training is very critical
And
for this to be successful.
yes, and when we've started, in the
And
next
parent training.
Right.
in the next 2 weeks, we have that professional development for our teachers.
And board training.
The company's coming back in
August.
and
Yeah.
October. And then, yes, the board, the parent piece is just as crucial as the teacher piece, because the parents are, they're hearing all of this, they've been hearing it, and they're apprehensive about, how can I help my student? This is all I know right now, and now we're changing, how can I help my student be successful? And that's why I think you saw us in May have our parent meetings back on the board, and now to continue that, to get them in the buildings and show them, open computer lab nights to say, okay, here's what we have, ask us questions, let us help you understand.
I'm sorry to say I didn't get a chance to attend those meetings. How well were they attended by the parents?
Well, we probably had about 10 at Mayo and Memorial, you'd say, and Amy at Wentz, it was.
About 5 or 6.
So we were hoping for more.
So, I mean,
We had good discussions, so.
how do we get this message to the parents that you've got to come and get this trained? I mean, it seems to me like if we can't communicate that, we've basically lost the parents in this process.
And here's what I hope. I hope that from our meeting in May, 2 weeks ago, that those parents will go out and talk. They will talk to their other parent friends of this is what I heard. Because we know that in the world of social media and in the world of communication the way it is now, that I'm hoping, and this is me being an optimist, that every time we have these meetings and we get these parents in, they're going to go out and communicate the right information that they've gotten from us out. And so maybe the next time we open up our buildings, we'll get more people in because they'll want to hear what we have to say. I guess in my mind, it doesn't matter if I get 10 parents or 100, it's still worth it for me, and I'm going to continue to do it because it's important to continue to do it.
And I agree, but I also think 100 is more important than 10.
I
And we've got to figure out how to get that
Yes.
across.
I'm hoping that when we open up the computer labs and maybe it's a more informal setting, they might feel more comfortable coming in if they can.
Well, a lot of
Come in
them
and
they don't
we- yeah.
have time to get away. I mean, it's.
Right, so we offer different
That's
times.
a major concern.
Right.
Well, this may sound funny, did you offer them pizza or anything? Kind of
We-
incentive to come in?
We considered
They
it.
often through the mail when I come in and tell them how things are going, and we had about 12 people there. But, I mean, I don't know how you motivate parents that don't want to be motivated. I'm sorry.
It's a problem we've had
Forever.
for years, yeah.
Put something on Facebook that's negative and then they'll be right
Oh,
there.
I remember when I was in the 4th grade, now I have no idea what book we used, obviously. But, it was, I'm sure, the rope method. But the teacher would say, okay, you have 6 students and you're going to give them 9 pieces of candy apiece. How many pieces of candy do we need? Well, you just automatically knew, well, that's a multiplication problem. 6 times 9 is 54, right? And what would new math do, or this other math do, to teach that same problem?
Well, you would still have what you did as an option, but to the kids that didn't just go, oh, I multiplied, which is a big chunk of
Yeah.
the kids, they have, there's a lot more manipulatives to use. We've got our base 10 blocks, so you would start with the group that you had, which I don't remember your numbers, and then, draw a picture of that many, and then you would draw that 6 more times if you're multiplying by 6, and they can visually see it.
Basically, when you multiply 9 times 6, you're adding 6 times 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6.
9 times.
Yeah.
And that is another
Basically,
option.
that's what we're trying to.
We
trying to
understood
break
that
down
too,
one.
though, I mean, the teachers taught that.
We had to flash
Just
drive
kind of-
to
Straight how old I am, we had those flashcards.
Oh, yeah.
They just beat that into
And
us.
timing, you were timed on
Yeah,
them.
hard to chisel on rocks.
We used to go around the room. If you went around the room without.
A mistake?
No, it was fast, and, if you beat somebody and still had it right, and got an ice cream cone from Coogan's. That's how old I am. Nobody knows what that is.
Well, I think it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a very difficult process, initially, but listening to this lady tonight, I mean, she's been through. She's an optimist, probably, but she knows that it can be solved if we handle it in the right.
Is
And I
Mattoon
think
like the
training
same kind of
is.
demographics?
No. If you have any parent comments, you had student comments, you showed us your graph, you had parent comments.
I mean, overall, I didn't have any negative questions from parents. I think parents appreciated that they didn't spend an hour doing math homework. That was the biggest thing. And we were doing multiplication and division in this. We didn't enter topics that we haven't covered before in 4th grade, so it wasn't anything extremely challenging. Now, if we had jumped to some of the higher chapters and tried to pilot that, I'm sure we would have had a lot of frustration. But we chose to pick chapters that we felt like they had enough background with to be able to actually try this program and see how it worked without the frustration of it being the new, more difficult topics.
Well, I think homework is probably essential to a certain extent, but we expect these kids to come to school for a certain amount of hours every day and go home and spend 3 or 4 hours on homework. They don't have a chance to be kids anymore. And I hope this alleviates that problem rather than complicate it.
I had probably half of my class go home typically on a normal day without any homework. And that was not the case with Saxon. With Saxon, we have 30 minutes at the end of our day to work on homework, and they can spend that whole 30 minutes and still leave with Saxon homework with the addition of, a couple other pages. So it has made.
And a lot of it has to, I think a lot of it needs to be done in the classroom as opposed to sitting at home and that's just, I don't remember taking 3 books on in 12 years of school, but that should reflect my education.
So that was the 4th grade book, and then they'll continue with a different book, the same series, but a different, okay.
And this is K through 8. When they get to Mayo, it's called Glencoe. It's not called My Math, but it's complementary, follows in the progression.
It's K through what?
It's a K through 8 program. Except at Mayo, we're going to call it not My Math, it's called Glencoe. So
Okay.
it's the same company.
So I'll have a 1st grader next year, and he'll have his.
No, I'm not sure exactly. I know my kindergarten teachers have talked about they'll rip the pages out and do folders. So I don't know what my 1st grade teachers will do, if they'll send the book home or if they'll have the students rip out the pages that they need and carry just the pages home. So I don't know. I think some of it in my building, it's how can I send these students home with these big books? And so I think there'll be a lot of tearing the pages out as they go along versus having the entire. So I'm not sure what you'll see.
Until it gets more difficult, I'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
When it gets more difficult, I might need the book.
Yeah.
And that's nice, and everything's online, so as a parent, you'll be able to see that.
I think that's wonderful.
We've got it.
You can look online and see what they're doing.
Actually, computers for families, but most families have
Well,
computers.
When we taken a survey recently, before when didn't we have about 75% of our
And most
parents
of
have
them,
internet
if
access?
they didn't have a computer at home, they had a smartphone, that they can pull it up on the smartphone too. Now, we do have some.
We have to
that
go get on
didn't
Facebook long
have
as
it.
the kids use it.
The library can use it.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you too.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Do we have any committee reports this evening? Public hearings and petitions, unfinished business, matters for follow-up, new business, right to revert to prior order of business. Do you have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Isaac,
Yes.
Tuttle,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Idle,
Yes.
Davis is yes, means adjourned.